this is what it's like to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'm gonna protect my guys. You just can't say that this is a me type of attitude now.
Sometimes, it's just like with anything. Stuff get frustrating. It's just how you respond to it. But I'm not letting that, derail me at all. So I'm just going to keep going and worrying about the right things.
And welcome back here to another edition here of the Men of Steel podcast with, of course, yours truly, Prodigy, Richey, as we are in week number 2 of training camp. A lot of big news coming on within the last 24 hours right now. Seems like talks might be getting a little bit serious for wide receiver Diontae Johnson. Is he or is he not a top? Is he deserving of being a top paid wide receiver, at least within top 10? We'll get to that in just a moment. There's reports from Dale Lally that his agent was in town. By the way, as we look at Brad C., who was here on campus today, as the Steelers completed their second day of practices at St. Vincent College. Now, don't forget, Chris Boswell, he got a long-term extension on Monday. Steelers can now move to see if they can work something out for Diontae Johnson. Also, I'd like to get your reaction right now. What is your thoughts right now as far as like Deshaun Watson being suspended for right now, for the moment, for 6 games this year? He won't be eligible to return until his team faces the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore right now. I think Deshaun Watson's got off the hook a little bit easy, a little bit slap on the wrist. We'll get to that in just a second. Plus, also want to get back to that a lot of comments have hit the fan as of recently as almost a couple of weeks ago. Ben Roethlisberger did an interview with Ron Cook, pretty much sharing some stuff, and pretty much it sounded like he was taking a little bit of a swipe at some of his current teammates, basically. And one of the reasons why he did not win some playoff victories. Cam Heward has some interesting choice words in response for Ben, to be honest with you. And then we also got much more to get into. Training camp battles right now, more particularly the quarterback battles right now. Is Kenny Pickett slowly moving up the depth chart? Right now, the latest was that he was moving up to number 2 ahead of Mace Rudolph. Is Mace Rudolph's time finally starting to tick down? He seems like he was being one of the better quarterbacks last week, but the only problem is, as Arthur Motes has pointed out, just his ability to take chances down the field. We know he likes to take care of the ball, but though not playing it enough to throw the deep ball, air it out, how much is that going to hold him back and hurt his chances of still being convincing of being a starter for this team? Once again, you guys can follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richey. For the Men of Steel podcast is at Men of Steel CGR. You can just mainly follow me on Twitter at Men of Steel CGR, where you hear me do a lot of my tweeting whenever I do for the Men of Steel podcast, as we are now in the first day of August. But let's go ahead and get to this Deshaun Watson. Let's begin the news right there. As reported yesterday, the announcement came down yesterday morning, as we heard, according to Jake Trotter of NFL and ESPN, he has reported that he will be suspended for 6 games without pay. This is coming from Judge Sue Robinson's ruling, who was assigned by the NFL, recommended that Watson be suspended for the entire regular season and postseason, which the league was fighting for. The NFLPA and the league will have until Thursday by 9 a.m. Eastern to file a written appeal. And the NFLPA has made it very clear on Sunday evening that they do not intend to challenge the ruling by Sue Robinson, that they were going to stand by it, and they were urging the league to stay the same, do the same thing. The only problem is with the CBA, the way it's set up, Roger Goodell, who has not been ruled as a judge, jury, and executioner. I mean, when it comes to handling disciplinary matters, guess what? At the end of the day, in the CBA, he could still agree or disagree with any rulings by an independent judge who's reviewing any personal conduct violations potentially. So more than likely, I would not be surprised him and the owners have a meeting. They decided to increase a little bit more. Remember, they were looking for at least almost a year suspension. But to be honest, we'll see what happens for this. Robson did go to mention that in Watson's conduct that his conduct did not fall into the category of violent conduct that required the minimum 6-game suspension. League, as I mentioned, has by far the most commonly imposed discipline for domestic or violence and sexual assaults. And right there, I mean, still pretty. The only thing is that's helping Deshaun Watson, like it or not. That was a very uncovering situation. Is that he has not been indicted on any criminal charge. The only problem where this could continue to get dicey, like it did win the last 2 months, is there going to be any more women coming forward and have more civil cases ending up? If I'm not mistaken, it's down to one civil case right now. I mean, one of the women, he settled about 23 out of 24 from what I heard. And I believe that's Ashley Solis is the one who they're looking to try and settle with. But, you know, one of the things, too, also in Robinson's ruling, she did note that one of the aggravating factors in determining Watson's discipline was his lack of expressed remorse. She noted that among the mitigating factors were him being a first-time offender and his excellent reputation in his community prior to these events. Now, I gotta say, to be honest here right now, I would have no issue if Deshaun Watson only misses 6 games without pay. I mean, there's been talks too leading into this that some people could also view that he already has punishment about a year ago where he missed the entire 2021 season. This is shortly after he had his falling out with the Texans, basically where he refused to show up and play for them all season. He sat out all year. But at the same time, too, I mean, the Houston Texans are very much just as culpable in his actions. I mean, pretty much. I mean, they failed to handle the situation properly. I mean, if they ask me. I mean, pretty much giving the guy more money to try and discover, I mean, use as a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, I mean, I don't think the Houston Texans did him a favor. Try to marry this guy properly. But at the end of the day, too, I mean, like I said, Deshaun Watson, he has not been criminally indicted. Now, I mean, this is still very murky waters here, to say the least. I mean, you know, the league for right now, I mean, we also hear the talks too. At some point, they're going to want to go on business as usual. You got to expect, I mean, something like by Labor Day weekend, we'll hear a significant ruling, or they want to get this out of the way soon. I also do kind of agree with some of the guys from the Pippin podcast. I believe it was here Fred Taylor, Channing Crowder, who was mentioning too. I mean, at the same time, Watson, at the end of the day, his quarterback play does build in a lot of ratings for the NFL. I mean, if you think about it. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I mean, who is one of the most electrifying quarterbacks. I mean, if you really think in terms of what he's done, I mean, he is at the end of the day a very exciting player to watch, play under that position. And the Cleveland Browns, who gave up multiple first-round picks and guaranteed them the highest money, $230 million. And when you look at it, too, he's only 1-2 in the playoffs. Well, his only victory coming in the first round 2019, first-round upset against the Buffalo Bills, in which they wanted to lose to the Chiefs, squandering, I want to say it was 0.4-point lead around there. But Deshaun Watson, at the end of the day, I mean, he still brings in ratings at the end of the day. And the Cleveland Browns, who went for a enormous gamble of going to bat for this guy, willing to stay with him right now. I mean, who's arguably had his season best. I mean, without his top receiver, at the time he was with the Houston Texans, DeAndre Hopkins, who went to the Cardinals. 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which is pretty freaking good. 4,823 yards passing. Even despite the fact that it was his first losing record as a starter in his fourth year, went 4-12 that year. I mean, other than that, prior to that, he did not have a losing season. That was his first losing season. But for right now, the Cleveland Browns, I mean, they look like they might be slowly the winners in this for right now, if you ask me. I think the Cleveland Browns right now, I mean, the only thing that just stunk was the way they forced, I mean, basically your recent quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who is now with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, basically. And to be honest, I mean, the Cleveland Browns, I mean, did a lot of things under their owner, Haslam, for this year. And to be honest, yeah, I really feel like for right now, I mean, what's going to end up happening here, I mean, the Browns for right now, I mean, their first game is supposed to be on the road at Carolina. Then they got to play the Jets and Steelers at home, their next 2 games. And then they'll be on the road against the Falcons. And then at home versus the Patriots. So they're going to have 2 of their games on the road. So you look at their schedule right now, for the Browns more in particular, I must say, to be honest with you right now, I mean, I could see them coming into this, like, probably like at, I will be honest with you, I'll probably say 4-2 before Deshaun Watson joins them. I would not be surprised they're 4-2 at this point in time. It's very manageable and schedule for them to take care of. I mean, I could see them beating the Panthers and taking care of the Jets, possibly upsetting the Steelers right there. I mean, on Thursday Night Football. I mean, the Steelers are not really done so well as of recently in Cleveland, especially given the fact on a Thursday night game. I mean, then you got to be traveling versus the Falcons right there. I think that's another game that could be winnable. Chargers might probably be one of their first or second losses, you could argue, which would be at First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. Patriots, give me a coin flip. I mean, that might be their second loss. So I could see them, to be honest with you, going 4-0, they going into a 2-game slump. Here comes Deshaun Watson, to say the least. But to be honest with you, I mean, the thing is, too, I mean, Commissioner Roger Goodell, who's one of the greatest commissioners of all time, he still seems to come with a murky history of how he's handled a lot of these personal conduct policies, especially with Ray Rice, too, back in 2014, when they learned of the video of him slapping his fiance in an elevator, which they did not see clearly until like around after the conclusion of the first week of the season. After that, I mean, he was indefinitely banned from the NFL, basically. I mean, no other team has picked this guy up. I mean, he hasn't played it down since. But I think the message, I mean, for right now, too, I mean, the NFL, they want to get on with business as usual, especially when you got like all those sports betting continue to be on demand here. So again, what do you guys think? You guys feel like the suspension was enough? 6 games without pay? Should it be more? Like I said, I have totally no issue with it. Again, if you guys want to tweet, you can definitely tweet the Mass Steel Podcast at Mass Steel CJR. And you can definitely like to hear more of your thoughts as we move along here on this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast for right now. Let's go ahead and get into some other topics right now. Starting off here on the opening drive, Mike Tomlin going into camp over a week ago, he said he had the mindset that in 1979 that when he was playing his mouthpiece in the boiling water, getting ready for youth football, when I lack that excitement, it's time for me to move on to something else. I didn't boil a mouthpiece today, but I'm excited. Deontee Johnson, who is hoping for a new contract, as we just mentioned earlier, DLI said his agent was on site. Basically, he did report last week on time, did a heck of a job on the conditioning test. He's hoping for a new contract, set us up to him. Said he'd be a full participant in training camp, but there were some things that's out of his control. And here we got a few sound bites here from Diontae Johnson going into this real quickly as we looked at it. Never mind. I have to share that a little bit later on. But to be honest, I feel like Diontae Johnson, a guy right here, who, when you look at the top receiver market, so I mean, it's definitely been a lot of question. Now, he's been having a lot of drops, I mean, with the Steelers and in the National Football League. Don't get me wrong. But I also feel like right now, Diontae Johnson, I mean, the Steelers do a very good job of drafting receivers. I mean, primarily under Kevin Colbert. I mean, who's pretty much off to the side, and there's still an unknown how they're going to take care of Kevin Colbert going forward. That has not been clarified just yet as far as like what kind of position according to Omar Khan. But when you look at Diontae, I mean, this guy right here, he is still a playmaker at this position. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, his entire career, I mean, with the Steelers in particular, throughout 3 seasons, I mean, his yards of receiving have been going up at the end of the day. I mean, when you think about it, by almost 240 yards, over 240 yards a season, basically, around that. Yeah, 1,161 yards receiving last year, 8 touchdowns, which was his career high. He also had 53 yards from scrimmage, which is another career high. I mean, finishing for 1,214 yards of total scrimmage with 8 touchdowns altogether. I mean, and if you really think about it too, I mean, this guy, he could definitely stretch field. I mean, a lot. Now, the only question is, I mean, I'm not sure if he's a wideout, but I'd still probably play him in the slot, to be honest with you. I'm just not so sure if I depend him as a true wideout. I like him in the slot position, to be honest with you. But at the same time, too, I mean, he is a guy that can make plays for this team. I mean, can they take their chance and way around? Sure, but at the same time, too, I mean, who are you going to really, like, count for, I mean, this year, I mean, going into it? I mean, when you really look at it, I mean, it's going to be real interesting for this. I mean, wide receivers, Diontae Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens are the top receivers for this team. The only question does come, who will replace Juju Smith-Schuster in the slot? Ray McLeod, who is now with the 49ers, he held most of those duties last season with Schuster hurt during the Broncos game, which pretty much the season came to an end. But Johnson's getting better press coverage, so it makes little sense to line him up in the slot where team utilize receivers to get cleaner releases. Claypool can fit for now as a possible candidate, or Anthony Miller, who spent half the season on the practice squad, or rookie wide receiver Kelvin Austin, could be in the equation as well. Now, when you look at the top receivers, once again, getting back to like him as far as being a top receiver, here are the top 10 annually per year. You got Tyreek Hill, followed with Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and last but not least, DJ Moore. I mean, basically, and Tyreek Hill, who has been the highest this year, who's with the Miami Dolphins, he was getting paid $30 million, while Devontae Adams has 28. DeAndre Hopkins, $27.25 million. Cooper Kupp at 26.7. AJ Brown at 25 million. Stephon Diggs at 24. DK Metcalf. I would probably say for a guy like Diontae Johnson going into it, I mean, a fair, reasonable amount. I'd probably put him right above AJ Brown, to be honest with you. Around 26 million per year. I mean, if you think about it, I think that's a fair market for a guy like Diontae Johnson's caliber. The only problem he does not do is like watch the drops. I mean, no question about it. And for this, I really feel like for right now, I mean, you don't want to let a guy like this slip away. I mean, you got Andy Weidel too, who's gonna be like the right hand guy for Omar Khan, trying to help oversee things as far as like how to continue to craft this team together. I mean, it's definitely gonna be a new set of eyes. I mean, Kevin Colbert right now, I mean, you really start to wonder, are the Steelers just gonna just totally cut ties with him altogether and just do things their way? I mean, is it really necessary for him to still be hanging around? I mean, he did say he wanted to be treated kind of like similar to what Bill Nunn did. I mean, almost like as a scout or a consultant, basically. To be honest, I mean, at this point in time, I love Kevin Colbert, but at the same time, too, I'm kind of like at this point, too. I mean, him trying to step down from the GM role, and prior to this, I mean, he was going year to year as far as like his contract status. I think it's time to just move on from him altogether. I just feel like right now you have to let this team be in the direction of Khan and Weidel right now. I mean, it's still a little bit interesting how this is set up for Omar Khan, who has been the GM in the last few months. I mean, like how he's just basically doing his things, managing the contract situations, but still consulting with a guy like Andy Weidel, still working together as a tandem. I mean, it's like I'm gonna let you drive the car, but I still like need someone to watch like how you're driving. To be honest, yeah, it's like we still gotta keep an eye on you, basically, to ride this thing properly. And the Steelers, maybe they just want to have this as a collective effort. Now the other question is too is we're looking at going into camp. Claypool, he could fit for now as a possible candidate or Anthony Miller, who spent half the season off the practice squad, a rookie wide receiver Kelvin Austin. Remember, he was one of the top 3 or 5 guys fastest in the combine in the equation as well. George Pickens on Thursday, he nearly came down with a contorted catch this week, training camp from last week, that elicited oohs and ahs from the crowd. Caught the ball, but lost it when he hit the ground. Pickens had a nice catch on a skate post. I see a lot of skate posts last season, pretty much. And then you got the other guys on here too. I mean, Claypool, he wasn't practicing last week on Friday or Saturday, excuse me, as with a shoulder that got dinged up on Friday, but he's not wearing anything on it. According to Dale Lye, it didn't look like anything serious. Should be another big George Pickens day. Defense, they won 7 shots. Trubisky was 1 for 4. Defense was all over the young receivers. Rudolph was 1 for 2 with a juggling touchdown catch by Connor Hayward after the defense back got a hand on it. And Pickett got his first chance through a backhorn fade to Tyler Vaughns for a touchdown. So, I mean, that was pretty much training camp, as of last week, for that matter. But when you look at things going forward, too, I mean, for the Steelers right now, I mean, interesting, too. I mean, when you look at the receivers and the quarterback position more in particular, I mean, Kenny Pickett moving to number 2 right now on the depth chart. And basically, Tom has said all along, we're not going to micromanage or overmanage this quarterback competition. Tom said on reporting day, depth chart will not rest on every throw. We're going to be a little bit more study than that. I think it's important from a leadership perspective to not overmanage it, to not be too impulsive. That's why I relate to these guys, and our actions will continue to display that mindset. I can't believe right now Mitch Trubisky is going to be the guy that starts things off. I mean, I'm starting to be more and more convinced as this offseason continues to progress, more in particular with training camp. I do like the fact, too, that Trubisky, he is wanting to help, like, a guy like Kenny Pickett, try and teach him a few things. You know what? That's got to be a little bit more encouraging right now, because the quarterback depth chart right now is Trubisky, followed by Pickett, Rudolph, and then of course, last but not least, Chris Oladokun. Pickens, who got his first chance on Saturday, perhaps a precursor to what happened Monday as he bumped up and took second team snaps ahead of Rudolph. But Lally does say pretty much encourage everyone not to read too much into it. There will be a lot more of that. All those guys are running in all groups. It's just part of team development, Tomlin said Monday. Kenny Pickett, he was 0 for 2 on his chances, 7 shots, missing a pass with Miles Boykin and Cam Heward. Bill Hayward slipped coming out of his break. It's questionable whether the pass would have been clear or not. And Mace Rudolph, his only pass in 7 shots resulted in a touchdown. Shovel pass inside screen to tight end Jay Sternberg. See, that's once again Rudolph right there. That's going to be the question. Is he going to be the guy that's going to willing to like air it out a little bit more, take some more chances? Doesn't seem that way for right now. But to be honest here, I do feel like Rudolph, his time is ticking right now. He's had multiple opportunities to, like I said, get this thing together, get this thing righted. And to be honest, I'm just his confidence, to be honest. It's one thing to be patient, but at the same time, too, Rudolph, I mean, if you're going to continue to be playing it safe, I mean, he's almost like a lesser version of like an Alex Smith, but like not as a starter. Steelers right now, I think, I mean, going into this, I mean, yeah, you do want to have a guy that could be a game manager for right now. Now that we're moving on from Ben Roethlisberger. But at the same time, too, when Ben was last at his peak, prior to having his elbow being injured, he was lighting up the offense. Thanks in large part to talents on there. I mean, with the likes of Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. I mean, you could also add Martavis Bryant in there for a few years. I mean, a lot of guys. I mean, that is still going to be huge for this team to follow. I mean, you have to find a way to keep up offensively this year with the league, to say the least. And we'll see how that continues to go. But when you also look at it, too, I feel like, well, with the quarterback position, we'll find out a little bit more. But anyway, Mace Rudolph, earlier today, he dropped a play action deep ball into Kelvin Austin behind Lyndon Stevens. Definitely the best throw of the day so far by any of the quarterbacks. So it's still kind of like a little race, like a little marathon, if you ask me, the way this quarterback position is going on right now. A lot of guys still in it. I'm just not so sure about Rudolph. I feel like if anything, he's had his chances to like really like put a stamp on it. He's not doing enough to run away with it and like be convincing that he deserves to stay on with this team and be their guy for the long haul. I'm just not seeing it, especially when you draft the next quarterback at the end of the draft. I don't think so. But anyway, I want to go into this these comments real quick. A couple weeks ago, we're listening to like Ben Roethlisberger, and here's one thing I want to hit on this podcast right now. I just want to thank those of you for tuning in here on Facebook Live. I apologize for a little bit of lighting. I know it's a little bit of like a shade going on right now, so I'll try and fix that a little bit in the future. Thanks anyway for tuning in. But the meat of nearly the last 2 weeks has been the catch-up interview with Ben Roethlisberger and Ron Cook of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which, by the way, is also one of the co-hosts of the Cook and Joe Show on 93.7 The Fan, basically. And Ben Roethlisberger, too, I mean, who's definitely been a guy that has been frustrated as of late. I mean, coming up short, not having any more than 3 playoff wins, yet alone another Super Bowl. I mean, since Super Bowl 43, Yellow's last Super Bowl appearance since Super Bowl 45, basically. And basically he had some pretty like interesting comments too, by the way. as we looked at as he caught up with, Ron Cook. Basically, he says that he regrets having only 3 playoff wins. He's saying that I feel like the game has changed. I feel like the people have changed in a sense. Maybe it's because I got spoiled when I came in. The team was so important. It was all about the team, not about me, this, and that, and the other. I might be staying on the soapbox a little bit, but that's my biggest takeaway from when I started to the end. Turn from a team first to a me type attitude. It was hard. It's hard for those young guys too. Social media, they're treated so well in college. Now all this new stuff, especially with social media, which is unbelievable, they're treated so special. They're called at a young age because college coaches need them to win. I know Coach Terry Hopner never called me at Miami of Ohio. Neither did Bill Cowher. I did it for a long time. Rossberger wanted to say regarding his career. I know doing it for a long time doesn't mean that you get in, but again, you look at the wins and losses. I think I did it at a high level for a long time that I think would be pretty cool to get in. It's a special thing. That's one special place and a special accomplishment. And Cam Heward, who definitely really took offense to this, here's what he had to say basically in response to Ben Roethlisberger's comments. Take a listen to this.
I was a little bit upset about it because I was always raised to protect the locker room, protect the guys. And the way it seems is, and this is my point of view, this is what I see. It looks as though we're looked at as selfish players, and I think that's not the point. I think we have a lot of young players that come from different backgrounds. I think we have guys that have experienced different things than what I or somebody else might experience, and that doesn't make them selfish, or it doesn't make them more of a me-type attitude. I think when you have young guys, it's up to the leadership to step up, myself included. I'm accountable for those guys, and obviously we haven't had a Super Bowl in a long time, and maybe that's where Ben's like, man, if younger guys have grown up, but man, it's up for the older guys to step up and, hold guys accountable. Social media comes. Social media wasn't as big when Ben was first coming into this league, but that's nothing we can run from. You embrace it and you learn to be, you learn to continue to just learn, continue to just make your team better.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it was definitely interesting too how he also gave a little bit of shout outs to like guys like Antonio Brown and especially Tyson Allow, but more particularly Antonio Brown. I mean, who's definitely had a lot more mixed reactions to say the least ever since his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers came to an end. I mean, up until the point until he hooked up with Tom Brady with the Patriots and reunited with him with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, still, you cannot take away the fact that Antonio Brown, despite his little theatrics or his attitude, he was fun to have on the team, made significant contributions that helped elevate this team to Super Bowl contenders. I mean, him and Ben Roethlisberger, is part of that. But I think Cam Heward, too, I mean, when you hear the response to that, I'm also hearing a guy, too, I mean, who wanted to make sure, too, that just to make sure that, we all did it as a team. I mean, definitely took offense to Ben Roethlisberger, who felt like, who won them a lot of games and never had a losing record. Cam Hayward's also realizing, too, that his opportunities for another title is running out. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, he is a little bit more getting discouraged. I mean, still encouraged as a leader in that locker room. But I mean, how much more do you continue to keep holding your head up high? I mean, be as patient as he did. I mean, going into his 12th season with his team, and he's also got like 3 more years left. He game with this year, 3 more seasons basically. So 3 more chances at the bite of the apple here to try and get something done here and see him finish out his career, because he's projected to finish out his career at the age of 35. And we'll see how this team will continue to rally together. But I will say this for Ben Roethlisberger, and I pointed this out. I made some posts on this. And I think the only thing, too, where he fails to look at himself in the mirror, I'm not saying he did it, but I don't think he did it enough. But if you think about it, since Super Bowl 45, we already know that he's been 3-7. The biggest things that, why the Steelers haven't gotten more playoff victories, who's been one and done since the Jacksonville Jaguars game. If you think about it, check this out. Ever since Super Bowl 45, in those losses, and in his win-losses, excuse me, he has been responsible, for basically 13 out of 18 of the team's turnovers. And off of Ben's points off turnovers, he's responsible for 44 out of 79 points. Basically, which accounts for over 56%, 72% of turnovers were on him. And when I'm saying points off turnovers and turnovers, I'm basically including going for and out. When you look at it, you could definitely say that, the key losses, in those playoffs, I think I definitely fault Ben responsible for. You'd have to go, with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, the offensive line wasn't at its peak. It didn't finally start developing to around, I want to say 2016 is when they finally started becoming top notch. Even 2015 was a little question mark for them. But then, that was a game where he got knocked out during the game right there. And the Ravens eventually won that. Of course, Le'Veon Bell got hurt in the final game of the season. They didn't really have a run game. Plus, they cut LeGarrette Blount, who walked off on them after the game in their win over the Tennessee Titans. But then the other games, too, where he was responsible. Definitely the Jacksonville Jaguars game back in 2017, where they lost that one. And in that game right there, he was responsible for 10 points, basically giving up off turnovers right there. Oh, excuse me. In the Jacksonville Jaguars loss, he was responsible for 14 out of 21 points off turnovers. Game against the Browns, 17 out of 24 points off turnovers. 4 out of the 5 turnovers were lost by Ben. The Kansas City Chiefs game, not really, too much his fault. Definitely a lot slower than what he looked. The team as a whole could not fail to capitalize off that strip fumble return for a touchdown by T.J. Watt. That was pretty much the end of it. No running game in that. So, with Ben Roethlisberger, listen, always going to give this guy his praise, his admiration for what he's did for the franchise. No doubt about it. He has rewarded his team, with the most impeccable run, this franchise has ever seen, to be honest with you. And deservedly to be like a better quarterback somewhat than Terry Bradshaw, why not? I just feel like for right now, when you look at how they came up short, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger hasn't done, you can't say that he hasn't done enough to be a leader of this team. But I will also say, too, when you also took a pay cut, too, you took about, $5 million in less money to help a guy like T.J. Watt get a new deal. Obviously, you knew you were on your last legs. You had to be on their terms right there. Pretty much sold and begged his way back onto the team. But, where was that same energy, too, similarly for a guy like Le'Veon Bell 4 years ago? Where you could have taken less money to help this guy out, get him a new deal. It's definitely about the guarantees as well. No secret there. But I do believe right there he could have helped that a little bit better. James Conner, he did have a great season that year. The only problem was once he got with that concussion against Carolina Panthers, in 2018 on Thursday Night Football, he was not the same guy, to say the least. And that's where you got to really look at things front and center here. Cam Hayward, basically, he was basically saying, don't say that Cam is calling out bad. It's not like that. But he said that I'll protect my team. I'll make sure that everybody knows that we care only about football on the field and less about off the field. We can all understand Ben has a heck of a quarterback, has been a heck of a quarterback, excuse me. You don't do this game, become a Hall of Fame quarterback and do it at a low level. He has taken some hits. Now, a lot of other teams could do. He saved us. He won games we weren't supposed to win. And he's always stepped up. But it was the team around him that helped him do it. And I don't want anyone to ever forget that the whole team won, not just Ben. And basically, Ben Roethlisberger, thankfully, he was able to respond to those comments on the DV last week regarding his Me First comments. Says he wasn't trying to bash anyone specifically. Understands Cam Heward defending his teammates. He had that he agreed with him and he should have been more clear. The majority of the guys on that team are team first guys. So basically right there. I mean, it's not okay, but to be honest with you, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger too, including the last few years, you kind of have to take with a grain of salt right now. It's kind of hard to really trust like whatever comes out of his mouth. It's going to be anything but positive. I'm not really so sure, to be honest with you. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, I think he's trying to say the right things. He's trying to make him sound good when on the camera, and he's done a hell of a job cleaning up his life, too. And he's speaking of which, a guy like Deshaun Watson, at least similarly, who's been accused of women accusations, not in the level of Deshaun Watson, but two, I mean, definitely unforgivable in a lot of people's eyes. But he's cleaned his life up a lot better right now. He's been building a family, and I mean, it's done a lot better than that. I think the only problem is at the end of the day, too, you see some of the mistakes that he made during his tenure, especially towards the end of his career, the last decade. I mean, ever since, when Todd Haley was pretty much out of the picture. And you think about Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, this quarterback, don't be surprised that nothing comes out of his mouth, and it could be a mixed bag at times. It's going to be somewhat controversial. But overall, as a Steeler, I mean, he's done enough to try and become the leader of this team. He's tried to, keep everyone motivated. There were sometimes he had to say a few harsh things, had to give a little bit of tough love to send the message. But at the same time, too, I mean, his legacy is indeed set. This guy will no doubt be a Hall of Famer. And thankfully that Tom Brady did not go through with his retirement around the same time shortly after the same time period that Ben Roethlisberger did. Because right now, other than that, he'd be sharing a stage with Tom Brady if that was the case. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up real quick. Former Steelers around the AFC North. Last week was also noted, too, that Lions are signing former defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs, who, according to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, he will be on a one-year deal with $965,000 base salary, pretty much close to the vet minimum, if you think about it. Sixth-round pick of the 2019 NFL Draft, as he appeared in 29 games with 7 starts in 3 seasons before the Steelers cut him in January. He signed with the Raiders practice squad for the week of their postseason, where the Raiders eventually lost to the Bengals. In 6 out of 10 starts, he recorded 17 tackles, 2 tackles for loss that pass defense. To be honest with you, Isaiah Buggs, I thought he was a guy who possibly had potential. But when you really look at it, too, when you look at the injuries up front, basically, when you had Tyson Alelo, who was lost with a knee injury earlier on in the season, I forget which game it was. I want to say it was versus Raiders, but then also Devin Bush, who was also coming off knee surgery, by the way, too. He did not have a lot of tackles, this year piling up. But I think right now, this in a way kind of, brought him under the microscope, see what he's got, see how much he could do to will this team. Not really. They didn't really shake out as well as you would hope. But I think Isaiah Buggs, he was definitely a disappointment. But, I think he did better with more around him. For his time as a Steeler. When you look at things, other than that, 12 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss were his career high. He had 12 assisted. which is career high. So he has highest in tackles this year was 17 total, basically. Also, too, 2018 second-round pick, Jesse Bates for the Bengals, who will not report to training camp, is expected to, after failing to strike a new deal, he refused before the deadline for franchise tagged players. He is another interesting one right now. Who's looking to get in contract with the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals as a safety right now. Still playing on his final year remaining in his salary of his rookie deal, which he'll be making about $12.9 million this year. And basically, he was not subject to fines by declining the $12.91 million tag. Mike Brown said last week that he expects Bates to play with the team this year. He added he hopes things work out in the way that Bates will remain with the team in 2023 and beyond. He has started all 63 games and has 10 interceptions along with 35 pass deflections. He also added 2 interceptions, 6 pass deflections for the playoffs. Cincinnati, by the way, covered their bases by drafting safety Daxton Hill and defense back Cam Taylor-Britt in the first 2 rounds before adding safety Tyson Harrison at number 166 overall this year. Bengals surely will feel Bates' absence if he stays way into the regular season. And by the way, too, the Bengals, who have been busy on the defensive front, they've been able to sign 3 free agents, team announced. They signed defensive tackle Dominique Davis, defensive end Raymond Johnson III, and linebacker T. Grace Skills, formerly with the Steelers, joined the team at training camp. Davis, first-year player on the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, originally signed with the Jets as a college free agent. In 2020, he was not with an NFL team during the past regular season, but he did play with the Houston Gamblers of the USFL this spring. Johnson, who was a second-year player out of Georgia Southern University, was a college free agent signing of the Giants in 2021. He appeared in 15 games as a rookie and totaled 4 tackles. Skills, by the way, who was a second-year player of Indiana University, originally signed as a college free agent with the Rams in 2018. He spent time in the Colts practice squad as a rookie, and in 2020 he had stints with practice squads of the Bucs and the Steelers. Ravens running back J.K. Dobbins is beginning training camp on the physically unable to perform list. He continues to recover from an ACL tour. Baltimore, they did work out well. Gallman and Corey Clement. Gallman spent last season with the 49ers, Falcons, and Vikings. Appeared in 6 games for Atlanta, taking 48 carries for 104 yards and catching a 21-yard pass. And basically, that's it right there. So anyway, like I said, we'll have some more. I'll be doing a new schedule change, by the way, as I continue to work with, just trying to figure things out still. But I'm going to try and aim to have the show on Sundays and like Tuesday, and we're going to try and go for instead of the old Monday and Wednesday. So we're trying to do Sunday at 8 Central Time, and then on Tuesday, same time, basically. So that'll be the new time slot for right now. I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who stayed with me, and sorry for the confusion. It's just been a hectic last year and a half trying to figure things out. But anyway, we'll keep you posted here contribution-wise. And all eyes, ears, and open right now. We'll see if Diontae Johnson gets into a new deal. It seems like things are starting to heat up. And more right now. Will we be able to finally see a healthier T.J. Watt this year? Will he not play for much injury this year? A guy who's playing with a groin injury. A lot more stuff to get answered. And also the quarterback positioning battle. And also, too, don't forget, for this year, right now, Steelers Hall of Honor, let's real quickly cap this off real quick. Myron Cope, who finally gets into the Hall of Honor, he is the only broadcast note right now going into this Hall of Honor who broadcasted, with the team for 35 seasons, with Steelers. His last was in 2004, Ben's rookie year. He's been a part of 4 Super Bowls during that time. Of course, during that 1970s, 5 Super Bowls altogether, which Steelers did lose 1 under Coach Bill Cowher before he got their team's 5th a year after he retired. Heath Miller, another notable one, 2005, 2015, helped contribute 2 Super Bowls with them, 2 Pro Bowls, real quick. They're one of their amazing tight ends. He also got Sam Davis, who was left guard from 1967, 1979, was a 4-time Super Bowl winner. And then, of course, Ray Matthews, halfback and right end from 1951, 1960, 2 Pro Bowls. Congratulations to these men right there. And that's going to do it for this edition here on the Men of Steel podcast. And you guys can follow me on Twitter at Men of Steel CPR and on Instagram at Men of Steel Nation. As I leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone. Thank you for watching the Men of Steel podcast with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Men of Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.